Could you please share more recent data as to what's the situation now when we talk about domestic violence?
Good morning again, Sheriff. Good morning, everyone. The I think it would be very correct to say that the latest pandemic in Nigeria is domestic violence. The audacity, the intensity. On the By the 21st of March, we had lost 36 women. That is that we know, and these are some that otherwise would have been, there was some that before we even got to the hospital, they had quickly buried the body. They don't want, and several things that you don't even know every other day, especially when you're talking about Ajegunle, you're talking about Alimosho local government, you're talking about Ikorodu. These places, Koshofe local government, those four places are maximum casualty areas. There is no hospital you will go to that then you are coming down to Aja axis. It's a terrible pandemic. It is terrible. At least this first quarter, we've lost over 100 people to domestic violence and abuse in Nigeria.
Over 100.
Over 100 this first quarter. That is between January and March.
Wow. Now, what's been level of awareness? I was thinking that we've moved on. I was thinking that we now have massive awareness amongst the populace. I was thinking that we now have even increased awareness amongst the law enforcers themselves. So I wasn't expecting such a huge number.
I said earlier the year that domestic violence is fighting back. When you are fighting against and it is fighting back, it is seriously fighting back. And the problem we have, for example, by the 21st of March, we had lost 36. Of the 36, 18 had left before but came back. They came back due to family pressure, number one, due to religious pressure. Number two, and you find out that now 21 out of those 36 had reported to the police. But the police will send them back and say it is a family matter. That is the latest thing. It is a family matter. We had one who was bleeding in the DPO's office. And the DPO said that they should.
Hold on, Mr. Abiye, we'll come to you.
The DPO said that, your husband was just upset.
Oh, wow.
You understand? You have government aided, by government, I meant the arm of government called law enforcement. You have some people reporting to FSUs and you say, so you want to send your husband to prison.
FSU is family support
support unit. You have, so there is nowhere to go. And then society would now break down. You have a right to self-defense. When family can't help you, your family says, in our lineage, nobody has left, there's been no divorce, so you have to go back. Your church can't support you, they'll say, God hates divorce, go back. Then you go to the police says it is a family matter. Then what do you have? Your own self. You have a right to self-defense. So when all of us now start defending ourselves, then you would see another pandemic called your right to live. That is, you can kill under self-defense. That is what the society is tending towards. When there is no, you go to government agencies, people go to DSVA, people go to the Ministry of Justice. Yeah. The length of time it takes to even attend to a matter, that is, if your matter is attended to at all, has already, to even get a protection order, it took DSVA themselves 1 year to get a protection order. That is a government agency themselves. You take the matter
1 year.
1 year to get a protection order. How would the person be alive, Seth, in 1 year? You go and say, okay, you want an emergency care order because now there's another pandemic I will discuss later called child abduction. Spouses are now taking children to settle scores, You will just get home, you see that this one has left and taken the children. And you go, you tell the police will say, your father cannot kidnap his son. And that is how we have people who have not seen their children in almost 4, 5, 7, 8 years because somebody just got angry, took the child, and swore you will never see your child again. Law is just law and order is just broken down. The domestic violence and abuse has gotten to another level that if the government does not intervene, if the police will not stop treating matters as family matter, the society is bound to fail.
Who are victims then? Who can victims approach for help? Because that's my next that's where my thinking is going now. If they can't go to the authorities to report and get reprieve, or at least get some semblance of hope that their matter will be resolved in 1 year to get protection. I mean, so what's now left for the victims to do?
Family court sits once a week. Can you imagine that? Family court sits once a week, in some jurisdictions twice a week. Meanwhile, 40% of the cases are family cases of domestic violence and abuse, cases of child abduction, cases of custody of children. And just once a week, I had that matter when I filed when my son was in danger, and I filed for custody. It took me 2 years and 6 months. By the time I got my son, he had fully gotten ulcer, astigmatism, and it was a skin disease or skin. I spent almost 300,000. What I was fighting against 2 years, 6 months, what if he had died? Because he was locked up in one room. I don't even understand. And I am a lawyer. So can you continue paying for 2 years, 6 months a lawyer? Which person would stay in court that long? I would not look for other means. Who would? Do you know how can you fund 2 years and 6 months? I went through 3 lawyers, that is including myself.
Yeah, because you're one.
Because I'm one. 2 of my lawyers, they just couldn't continue. I had to now take over my own case because I thought, okay, let me not represent myself. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, this is troubling, really. Let's try and bring in one of our other panelists here. We got Mrs. Abie the other time, but let's try and bring them in as soon as we can. We'll bring them in, but we're having some technical issues here. That's why I'm trying to reach out from the studio here. Usually, I shouldn't be reaching out from the studio here, but the other screening room is. It's experiencing some whatever it is experiencing. Hopefully it'll be sorted out. Then we can get all our panelists in the studio. Olumide, I'm going to come to you before I go back to the telephone lines to go and get because before we leave this aspect of our conversation, we also need to hear from people, victims, like their experiences trying to get authorities involved in their cases, so that way we can connect what we're saying here to real life, actualities, realities on ground. Yeah, we'll come to that. But the last area that I wanted us to talk about in as regards this aspect, of cases being handled and cases not being handled is, you have talked about 1 week. That the family court sits in Lagos.
1 day.
1 day in a week.
In a week,
1 day.
Yes.
You have also talked about how police authorities. What impact have all of this? What impacts have they had on domestic violence?
I tell people that some couples were not to marry in the first place. So when problem starts at home. And you tell your people, they tell you, you cannot leave. He beats you, the neighbors raise an alarm, they call the police. The police says, it's a family matter, you need a court order. Then you tell your pastors, your clerics, your imams, and they tell you that, Christians will say, God hates divorce. So spiritually, you cannot go anywhere. Physically, you cannot go anywhere. And according to your Lord, your policemen, legally, you cannot go anywhere. What do you think will happen? Then the person gets depressed. Last year, a woman walked into an oncoming truck in Ikorodu Road, mentioning her son's name and her husband's name. People were trying to save her. She just kept walking. Several occasions, people have been brought from the psychiatric hospital to my office. That is, their marriage made them lose their mind. Now you have people dying before their time due to high blood pressure. Some people can no longer keep food down. The moment they eat, they stool, the loss of appetite, migraines. Then people break down and then become violent. We have someone who just woke up, went to the kitchen, the husband opened his eyes and just saw her with a knife, and she stabbed him straight because she says she couldn't take it anymore. You know, when exactly? We have, last year, there were 63 deaths in less than a month. 63 deaths. 63. That was the first quarter of last. And I always talk about the month of March, which is the worst. It just determines, I don't know for what reason, but the month of March determines the curve of abuse in the year. 1st of March, a carpenter hit a woman, the wife, with a padlock on the head because they were arguing over who owned the house. By the time, she saw she was going to die, she quickly made a voice note and sent to the family that this is what the husband did. If anything happens to me, hold him. 2nd of March, a man, hunting, grabbed his wife on the neck, saying she did not open the gate on time. She made him wait, and the woman was 7 months pregnant. Strangled her right there at the gate. The audacity. The audacity. One of our listeners, my program, died because the husband wanted to check her account balance on her phone, and she refused. The woman we had been telling to leave, we had donated money for her to leave. So I think the husband
on the program.
Yes, now. I think the husband got to know that money had entered, and usually he collects a salary, and then he said, let me see, and she refused. Right there, he beat her up. And when she was trying to run, there was an electric cable around. He grabbed it and tied around her neck. In the ensuing struggle, she was choked to death. This was a woman that had already reported. Police officers must be trained in handling domestic violence and abuse. Domestic violence is not a family matter. You cannot send people back to the abuser saying it is a family member. The police has to, by the time they move, they don't need the victim to come and complain. We have to stop that. A victim that is unconscious, a victim that is in the hospital, a victim that is suffering from Stockholm syndrome, that already the self-esteem has been bruised, battered, and beaten, that they cannot talk. You don't need the victim to talk. The moment a report is being made, you don't ask them for mobilization. That's one thing you go and make. They'll say, for us to be, I have someone who collected, he said, bring 20,000. I had to report to the DPO. The DPO made the policeman refund the 20. And these are part of the things that drive people away. I have to pay you to come.